think this is essentially as good as it's going to get. Anyway, howdy, my name is Dane Madrigal, and I'm a musician based in Cardiff in the UK, and today we're talking about Chapter 6 of Tchaikovsky's Guide to the Practical Study of Harmony. So, just so you guys know, everything's in the description, same as always, so make sure you check it out in case you want the timestamps, etc. Also, I have a lot of social media. I'd be very grateful if you guys could follow me on that, especially on my Discord. I'd like to have an active discourse going about not just this treatise, but all sorts of different musical topics, and I've already made channels for them, so if you hop on the Discord, we could start chatting. So anyway, Tchaikovsky diving into Chapter 6 is talking about harmonies based off of the minor scale. Now he gives us some information that is interesting and pertinent about the minor scale, but essentially I'm just going to give you the golden nuggets of the chapter that will carry you through a study of functional harmony. Something really important to note automatically here is that what we're talking about in terms of chords formulated off of scales here are all off of the harmonic minor, so there's no melodic minor that we're dealing with or natural minor that we're dealing with. You can deal with those, but that's not the study of functional harmony, and especially not in this treatise. So just bear that in mind when we're going about certain things within the treatise itself. When constructing a harmonic minor scale and then constructing the chords based off of that scale, you're going to end up with 4 consonant chords. Those 4 consonant chords create 2 majors and 2 minors. So we're going to have 4 consonant chords. Those 4 consonant chords are 1, 4, 5, and 6. 2 of them are major and 2 of them are minor. 1 and 4 are minor and 5 and 6 are major. It creates 2 diminished chords and 1 augmented chord. So Tchaikovsky kind of gives us kind of an inkling of what we're going to be dealing with here. There's less vigorous harmonic material that we actually have at our disposal within the minor tonality. So primarily what we need to do now is figure out how to address those dissonant chords, because we need to make them resolve well. So if we think about our studies with the major chords, we see that the way that we dealt with the diminished chord within that context was by utilizing sequences. However, Tchaikovsky is telling us that that's not something that we can do now in relation to a harmonization in the minor. So first we need to start with a diminished chord built on the 7th degree. It has direct relations to chords built on the 2nd, 4th, and 5th degree. However, it can only be properly connected with the triad built on the 5th degree. The reason that it can't be connected to the other chords is basically because an augmented second would arise in the voice leading, and for Tchaikovsky this is a no-go. And then when we're dealing with the connection of the chord built on the 5th to the chord of the 7th, or the chord of the 7th to the chord of the 5th, the 2 voices that have the same note need to remain in the same position. Now we're going to deal with the diminished triad that's built off of the 2nd degree. So it has relations to chords built off of the 2nd, 4th, and 6th degrees. And luckily for us, there's only 2 things here that need to be avoided. These are 1, concealed fifths and octaves in the voice leading, and 2, that we don't create an augmented second again within our voice leading. The augmented second can actually be easily avoided in connecting to the 6th from the 2nd, or from the 2nd to the 6th by just using contrary motion. So remember again, contrary motion is our best friend when we're dealing with any type of voice leading. And now for the juicy one, the augmented triad built on the 3rd degree. So it has relations to chords built on the 1st, 5th, and 6th degrees. So this chord is hardly used diatonically, but it can often be found in chromatic passages, especially as an altered chord. Sometimes when leading from this chord, we can often land on a chord, in which case the voice leading has pushed us to have a root that is not the actual root of a chord. That didn't make any sense. Essentially, it's not in root position, so it might have the 3rd in the bass rather than the root of that chord, which breaks our rule of having root position chords up until this point for the most part. So now we get to dive into the wonderful world of figured bass, and what joy it's going to be. So there's 3 figured bass symbols that we're going to be dealing with right now. 3. We're going to deal with 8. We're going to deal with, I don't know which way to do this, 3 or 3, and then we're going to deal with 5 or 5. So 8 essentially implies that we're in root position. So we can just keep the fundamental tone at the bottom of a chord. If we see a 3, it means that we're in second position, and so we need to have the third of the chord at the root of the chord now, or at the bottom of the chord. And if we see a 5, that means what we're dealing with is a chord in the third inversion, which means that we have to have the fifth of the chord now in the bass. And Tchaikovsky just goes by saying that it's the position of the octave, the position of the third, and the position of the fifth, which is a really simple way of basically saying that whatever he just mentioned is what's in the bass. It's either the octave or the root, it's the third or it's the fifth. A good way to think about it, really. And of course, our most optimal situation is that there is no figure, in which case it's still just a root position triad, and we're dealing with, the normal things. Another figured bass idiom that you'll have to learn is that if there is a sharp sign as a figure listed, that means it's telling you to raise the third of the chord regardless of what inversion that it's in. So just by raising a semitone, you would create the effect that the figure is trying to indicate. Also relating back to a figure such as a sharp or a flat, if it actually has a number next to it, then it's indicating the specific pitch in a chord that's meant to be raised. So the most common one that you might see is you'll see a sharp and then you'll see a 5, which means regardless of what inversion that chord is in, the fifth of that chord has to be raised up a semitone. So in the case of something like this, that would create an augmented triad, which obviously is not something we like to deal with here, but it's something that we're going to have to learn how to deal with pretty efficiently. So what I'll do now is just do a brief example with you all and then go from there.
So this is Chapter 6, Exercise 3 in the Tchaikovsky. This is a tad bit of what I would consider to be an easier exercise, as the only figures that we're dealing with are the sharps, meaning to raise the third in whatever chord it is. In this example, since it's in D minor, we're only going to be raising a C sharp from all the chords that are built on the fifth, which is the A and the dominant. And just a little bit of a reminder, we're following practical rules that we all have discussed in prior chapters, and also I do these on the fly, so if you ever see a mistake in there, feel free, holler out, and that way I can see if it is something that actually needs to be amended, or we can just have a little bit of a discussion about voice leading. So anyway, here we go.
So that should really be it for today. I just wanted to put out there again, if you don't want to join any of the social media networks, totally fine. But I do think it's a good idea because I do enjoy chatting with you all. Sometimes I get messages and they're usually really wholesome, inquisitive things, and so I like connecting in that capacity. It just feels good to be able to help in whatever way that I can. So just, let me know if you actually do need anything like that. And also, I have a practice journal. I haven't ever linked it in the bottom description, but I have always had it just on my website. I think I'll put it in the description this time in case anybody wants to purchase it, just because I'm going to be redoing it. So if you want the older version, you're going to have to take it this time. But anyway, yeah, that's about it for today. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace. Oh man, that was rough. 14 minutes.